In this episode, we discuss the correspondence between René Descartes and Princess Elisabeth of Bohemia and their ideas about how the mind and body can have an effect on one another in a flourishing human life. Find out more on From What We Gathered with hosts Danny Nelson and Kylie Shahar.
In the land of teeter totters, I prefer a slide. Turbulent or gentle waters, let's go for a ride.
Hi, Danny.
Hi, Kylie.
All right, so my question for you today is, has there ever been a time where your mind has seemed to cause illness or pain to your body, or vice versa?
This is quite the question.
It's a
Mind over matter question.
Exactly.
And the matter is my body, which
Ding,
is
ding,
my
ding.
temple,
Ding,
apparently,
ding, ding.
I've been told through society. Yeah, I think that, I jumped to with this question a time in my life where I went through a breakup. And, because trauma-wise, there's many points in my life I could point to, but not one where I can think so specifically that I was so upset by this breakup that I took to my bed. Like, when I read old history things and they're like, so-and-so took to their bed, this is the moment in my life I think of. Because for a week straight, like, I had to call out of work.
Oh my gosh.
And I just was laid out
my
like
God.
for a week. Like there was
Yeah.
no such thing as day and night
Yeah.
or like, it was just like, the only thing I did was get up to use the restroom.
Yeah, and
Have
thank
some
God.
toast. Yeah, exactly. That was not something I could take to my bed. No one would have cleaned up after that because he had left me.
Oh.
But the sadness of my reality
Yeah.
was so real. My body shut down.
Yeah,
My body
yes.
was like, I cannot handle the
Right.
world right now because my mind was so sad.
Yeah.
And like in such a sad place.
Yeah.
Do you have you had this?
Let's see. I mean, I can't think of anything exactly like
Specific like this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
specifically like that. But the thing that I think of, which is going to be admitting something bad.
Secrets
Secrets come out finally. When I was a kid, I remember at least just one time. Okay, well, I remember a few times feigning illness to get out of school. We
Yeah.
all did it.
Yeah, of course. Sometimes you don't want to go to school.
Sometimes you need a day off.
Yeah.
A mental health day, as
Exactly.
they say. But this was not mental health. This was mentally bad because I remember at least one time I think I like convinced my body to start to feel like the sort of weakness and chilliness and illness that one experiences when they're actually sick. But I wasn't actually sick. I was trying to convince my parents that I was sick. And thus I think I did, through the power of my own mind, convince my own body to start to feel unwell, which is crazy.
Don't you
to
wish?
say.
Yeah, I hear you say this, and I'm like, the mental power,
I'm powerful.
so powerful,
Yeah, I
a
know.
mystic
Yeah.
of childhood
would say.
illness.
Yeah, some would say. Yeah. So, I mean, it feels a little bit embarrassing to admit it, but there we go. That's my
think
confession for the day.
You know what? I'll slide open the little pre-store.
Tell me I'm forgiven.
Give you a pic. Yeah, you're forgiven.
Oh, thank goodness.
No need to do any Hail
Good.
Marys or anything.
Okay. Very good.
But also because neither of us do that.
Yeah.
But also, I do think that there's something to be said about every kid
Yeah. Faking illness.
faking illness.
Yeah.
Or even, you know what, I could add to that?
Yeah.
Like maybe not faking illness, but also like faking how hurt you are by something.
For sure.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
which can be a very, very real place to get to.
Yes, you're totally right. Or like this may, I mean, like I'm no child psychologist or anything like this, but we all know roughly that if a child falls and it's not like a grave illness, like you could, or illness, not illness, injury, right?
Yeah.
You can see pretty clearly that everything's okay. You yourself are not supposed to react because your reaction signals to their little baby mind that something is wrong. And then, like, you know, I don't know. I mean, this is pure speculation, but I can imagine for some children, that kind of reaction and then like taking it into their mind actually does increase the pain and physical discomfort of their body.
And I think I think we came to an example.
Yeah.
Because we can all say, none of us have to dig up any
Right.
elementary school secrets.
Right.
Or bad breakup.
Or bad. Yeah. We should have just.
To all agree
Yeah. Yeah.
that this is an easy example to see where your mind can
Right.
turn
Yeah.
your passions.
Yeah.
Your pains.
Yeah.
Into
Yeah.
something more.
Right.
And that brings us
Yeah.
to Princess Elizabeth
Yeah. Princess Elisabeth and her.
of Bohemia.
Of Bohemia and her correspondent, René Descartes.
Who you may have heard of.
Who you may have heard of, but I also find it amusing to present it as Princess Elizabeth and her correspondent because, of course, historically we're sort of disposed to think about Descartes as just being at the center of it all and Elizabeth being this mere disciple or pupil of him, but really it's a bit more substantial.
Were they
than that.
equals?
Yeah, right. Maybe eventually. But a little bit, a little bit of
to say.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
We have some things to say about that.
Oh, we sure do.
And luckily,
We're going to say them
from
right
what
now.
we gathered.
Exactly.
So what did Descartes, tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about Elizabeth and Descartes. Like, how did they end up in correspondence?
Elizabeth encounters, Descartes' Meditations on First Philosophy, where importantly, what Descartes is doing, and I'll say more about this in a little bit, is trying to establish a real distinction between the body and the mind. We'll come back to that. And she writes to him with curiosity and a really important question that is really asking Descartes for some clarification on this. Like, if the mind and the body are really distinct things, then how does the mind cause the body to do things, right? Like, especially if you're thinking about causation in a really mechanical way, like think about a billiard ball hitting another ball, like
Yep.
it comes into contact.
Yes.
So how does this distinct thing, this immaterial, like intangible mind cause a tangible body to move and so forth?
And and when we're talking about mind, don't forget that like during this time period, the soul is intermingled with this,
Yeah.
which of course is intermingled with church and religion, like so many
sure.
things
Oh, for sure.
about how is your soul and your body
Yeah. Connected.
Yeah.
And part of this is Descartes wants to say like the soul really is immortal, unlike the body. And so this is part of, some of the sort of religious motivations for doing this and saying these things. And so Princess Elizabeth writes to him and is asking him for some clarification and just if we're thinking about some hot goss, she writes to him with this question, which if read in one way can look like a really striking and devastating objection to his view, right? Like a counter
criticism,
argument, a criticism.
yeah.
He writes back to her and fails to say anything in response to her actual substantive question, and instead seems to praise her beauty, but not just praise her beauty. He seems to say it's quite good that you've expressed this in writing to me, because if you had expressed this verbally and in person, it would be impossible to comprehend how such beauty could be commensurate with such brains. And he was like basically saying like, you're too pretty to be smart. And I would be rendered unable to respond to you because I'm so flabbergasted that you could be hot and smart, basically.
Yeah.
And she writes back to him like, can you answer my question, please? That was me furiously pointing to my book.
And something that is so cool about her and like goes in the hot goss kind of area of this time is that she was brilliant in her own right.
Absolutely.
Like people knew
Yes.
that she was
Yes.
a singular sort of mind during this time.
Absolutely.
Like they knew that she was like really brilliant. She knew a bunch of languages.
Yes.
Like essentially she would just like pick up languages all of the time. And so even by the time that she was in her mid-teens,
Yeah.
there were already people who were surrounding her as a kind of like intellectual superior person.
Yeah.
And so one of the cool parts about their correspondence and like Descartes' general fame is that she's really the one who rose him up to her because she was royalty.
Yeah.
Her being involved with him and her correspondences with him and stuff also brought up his kind of intellectual validity.
Yeah.
By being like, oh, if these like this royalty and great mind also see Descartes. So all of it is mixed together.
Absolutely.
Like with being kind of a thing. And we'll, talk a little bit more about females in the Enlightenment period forever.
Yeah.
Because that's where
we're never not going to talk about that.
that's where a lot of your scholarship lies. But I do enjoy the fact that even in their time, this isn't just like us in the future being like, look how great their correspondence was. Even during that time period, people were very interested in these ideas that they were coming up with through talking, because a lot of people were like, Descartes' ideas are going to like ruin reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like as far as the church goes, So there's just a cool part of them being involved in the way that kind of brought, like, now that we know her side of things, she helped bring his ideas into a more refined
and
clear,
plausible.
She asks him all of these clarifying questions that then allows him to make his writing more precise.
And indeed he recognizes his indebtedness to her questions and to her letters that she wrote to him, because part of what unfolds in their correspondence, and by the way, when we say correspondence, we just mean they exchanged letters, right? They exchanged letters over the course of about 6 years, and all of those bound up together is the correspondence between the two. And he, in the correspondence, in their exchange of ideas through these letters, Elisabeth presses Descartes on a lot of these matters, and especially on the idea of the passions, right? And this is the reason Descartes ultimately writes his book on the passions of the soul, which he dedicates to Elisabeth, right? So he recognizes his indebtedness to her genius, to her intellect. And, one of the things that comes through quite amusingly in the correspondence is Descartes sending her these letters with these geometric equations that he just cannot figure out. Like, he is at an impasse and he cannot, and he's sending this to other friends, other mathematicians, and Elisabeth figured it out. Elisabeth sends him back the letter going like, here's the proof. And and also let's go on with our rest of our conversation. And now let's carry on, right? So it's quite, she's a remarkable philosopher in her own right, whose ideas and her discourse with Descartes no doubt influenced and shaped the conversation of modern philosophy, for years to come.
And I think that goes back with like how it's such a cool thing to see that the way that their intellects challenged each other, because to be so brilliant and such a smattering, like more than just one kind of direction. And for Elisabeth to be like, here's some geometry, but also can we go back to this mind-body problem and really get to kind of something that she doesn't have anyone else to talk to about it, because this is another thing you see in the correspondence is she is talking with him about things that she really doesn't have anyone else to talk to about her position the philosophical level of her position.
Right.
And necessities and that, and what that bears on her reality.
Right.
And so that's why what does this have to do with the good life and happiness?
Yeah.
Is where does this mind body problem come in?
Yeah.
And the initial thing where we were talking about this mind over body situation.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, just to give a quick, super quick, non-technical go at the mind and the body thing, right? Like, as we sort of already suggested a little bit ago, right? For Descartes, right, he wants to establish a real distinction between minds and bodies, right? And so, the mind, right, he takes to be one kind of thing composed of a unique kind of stuff, right, that supports various properties like thinking and judging, right? And if you just think about these very ordinarily, you can't grab thinking, you can't grab judging, or you can't hold belief, right? It's this immaterial, stuff. And then contrast this with body, like our physical bodies, right? Our physical bodies are grabbable, right? They're extended in space, right? They're composed of stuff that, of a certain different kind of stuff that allows us to have these other properties like hardness or softness or roughness, right? Okay. So, then Elisabeth is asking him in the correspondence, like, well, if they're so different, how does the one cause the other to move and to go and to stop and all these things?
Yep.
Okay. Now, if we're thinking about how they carry on in their correspondence, one thing that comes up, and this comes back to the, distinction between mind and body. One thing that comes up is really fascinating. As their friendship is developing over the course of these letters, Elisabeth starts to disclose some really quite personal but deeply philosophical things that she's experiencing about her own well-being, her own sort of flourishing, that she is sort of expressing. On the one hand, I have all these royal duties, and people are always asking, I have all these obligations and all these people to whom I owe all kinds of stuff. And so I'm constantly being interrupted and bombarded, even as I try to write this letter to you. I just don't have any moment really to myself. There's always stuff being asked of me and people interrupting me and so on. And on the other hand, she's like, I'm so lonely. I feel so alone and isolated. And, this is in spite of the fact that people just won't leave her alone and she doesn't have a minute to sort of really just kind of work on her own philosophical thought. And so she's really kind of expressing, I'm sad. I feel, she doesn't use the word, but there's a kind of depression that's kind of looming.
Melancholia.
A melancholia.
Yeah.
And what's also fascinating is her reflections not only on this sadness, but also that she's like, and my body is weak. Physically, I haven't been able to get over this cough that I've had. And physically, I've just been feeling so unable to do anything. And of course, Descartes is well,
mind over matter.
Basically, right? He's basically well, if what you can do is try to sort of not let those passions, as it were, get the best of you, and you can try to, in some ways, through a meditation, separate your mind from your body such that you get a hold on your sort of psychic or mental or your soul's well-being, then maybe, right, you'll be able to get your physical wellness in order or kind of in check.
Yep.
And this is also what leads them to start to what leads Descartes to introduce to Elisabeth the writings of Seneca, right?
Which they read together.
A little reading group. Yeah. A little reading group.
Book club. Just with your standard princess and philosopher book club.
No big deal. Yeah.
And it's funny because they read Seneca together, but I mean, the listener probably doesn't know, but Descartes was very much against the ancients. Because his whole thing was that was very presumption. We've lived on all these presumptions,
Yeah.
and we need to restart with reason only. Everything, I think, therefore I am. We're restarting everything.
Yeah.
Through reason,
Yeah.
and we must think through everything as if it's new.
Right.
And so, even when they're reading, Seneca together, and like a lot of times, and it's why it's like part of the cool of their conversation, is he's like resisting Stoic thought at the
Yes.
same time that she's being like, yeah, but some of your ideas are awfully similar
Yeah. Right.
to these ideas, but
Yeah.
that's what their friendship was such that
Right.
she was never saying she was a huge fan of hers of hers.
Of her.
She was her own big fan. No, she was such a big fan of his.
Yeah.
She would never be like, you're wrong, right? She would
Yeah.
be like, elaborate.
Yeah.
I
Say
can
more.
see the nugget
Yeah.
of the idea that you have.
Right.
And I can see that it might come to something that's really cool, but
Yeah.
I want to hear what if you explore it in this direction, or here's
Right.
some questions that I have about it that I want to hear the way that you think about it. And so these are the kind of nuances where she's like,
For sure.
let's take these ideas, and bring them into a different thing. But Descartes, I feel like when he was like, take your mind and separate it from your body and these things, he wanted for her to be able to get out of those melancholy, right? Like it is this wish to your friend.
Yes. Absolutely.
You think about your friend comes to you.
Yeah. Yes.
And you love them. They're brilliant. They live a good life. They're awesome. Like whatever. They're sad. They're depressed. They're whatever. We do have this way of being like, just shake it off. And she says that to him. She's like, you're being awfully optimistic.
Yes. She's like, you don't understand what, also like, you don't understand what it's like to be in, you might say, to be in this body, i.e. to be this person.
Yep.
Right? Like that's being summoned at every turn, that has all these obligations, and you don't really you didn't have a choice in the matter. You're like born into this family. Now all of a sudden it comes with all these obligations and things like that. She's like, you don't understand what it's like. You can just retire to your room.
And her family's a hot mess.
Well, her family's a hot mess.
So when we're like, oh, she's sad about her family, her dad, the king,
dubbed the
Bohemia.
Winter King, because as you can imagine, his reign lasted only a season.
Yep, one season of being king, and he started the 30 Years' War.
Oopsies.
And like sent Europe into this kind of just like
nightmare,
terrible period of like scrambling.
Yeah.
And so part of her existence of being this like really brilliant princess, which she recognizes as like, even within all of this, I still have the comfort, whatever.
Yes.
But you never know, is everybody going to be put to death?
Right.
Is our kingdom going to be in siege?
Exactly.
It's not just her being like, oh, I don't get my way.
Yes.
She's like, the people that I am the princess of are in war and dying. And it's a terrible time in Europe anyway. I mean, you could say. But so this is like when she's like, you do not know what it's like to be me.
100%.
She's not just being like,
it's really hard.
Poor rich girl.
Right.
She's being like, I am deeply aware, but also have a sickly female body.
Yes. I mean, she's by the way, she's a teenager at this time. Okay.
She might get into her 20s by the end.
By the end of it, right? 6 years.
And their correspondence ends, by the way, because Descartes dies.
Oh, right. Which is another fun piece of hot
You may
goss.
remember from series 1.
Yeah.
He died because he didn't get enough sleep.
Yeah.
Did we do?
Well, maybe we didn't.
Maybe we didn't, because this was about sleep.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Let's go back.
Yeah.
Okay, by the way, their correspondence ends because Descartes passes away.
How
Do you
does
want to
he-
tell?
Yeah.
I'm like so excited.
I know. It's such a
after
fun-
he's like,
it's a fun one.
just take your mind out
Yeah.
of your body
Right.
and overcome your thing.
Yeah. Well, Descartes he was tutoring Queen Christina of Sweden, and she requested, I mean, she's a queen, so like when it's a request, you got to do it. She requested that their tutoring sessions take place very early in the morning, and Descartes had a penchant for sleeping a lot. So he was waking up in the cold air at like 5 o'clock in the morning every day, and it didn't take very long before he just died. And you know, it's sort of his death is sort of attributed to the fact that he had to start waking up early, which is just,
And it was cold out.
And it
he
was
had to
cold
wake
out.
out. He
Yeah.
had to wake up early, and it was chilly.
cold, and it was chilly. So yeah, if you're talking about
he got a
yeah,
fever and died.
and yeah, you know, it's like
After he was like mind over matter, and she
Right.
kept being like,
you don't get
I
it.
really tried to mind over matter, but my body's
really
weak.
hard. Yeah.
I know I'm smart,
Yeah.
like mentally strong, and so tell me why. Why can't I
Right.
pull my body? You know,
Right.
like
Yeah.
the same way, like you brought up earlier, a pool ball might hit a pool ball.
Right.
Like, why can't, like,
Yeah.
how do I make my mind touch
Yeah.
my body?
Yeah.
You know, or do
Yeah.
the thing. But if they're two separate things,
Yeah. Exactly.
you know. But yeah, I do. That is why their correspondence ended. Is
Yeah.
because
Whoops.
do that. And but you know, she continues on. She does end up becoming an abbotess and has a life of where she's like in the church and she's focused, and mostly because that's the only way that a woman could be a scholar
Right.
during that time and spend her time doing scholarly things. But also they do say it's because she was very sad. Like Descartes was her bestie.
Yeah, they had really forged such a unique friendship over, I mean, she's making these disclosures to him about her loneliness and her fear and all this stuff, which like princesses don't do that. You know, they're not just sort of like broadcasting the horrors or the isolation or the dissonance or whatever that they're experiencing. So like this was quite a unique relationship.
And can honestly be dangerous.
Yes.
Because if the wrong people
Yes.
get
Get
a hold
hold.
of the fact that she is like, oh, I'm not feeling great.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
Yeah.
there's all this stress in my family.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that
Yes.
could definitely be used
For sure.
against her. But I will say that I love stoicism. So I spend a lot of time on this idea
Yeah.
of where you are in your mind
Yeah.
has a lot to do with your happiness.
Yeah.
And I do think in this Enlightenment period, it was very important. Like Elizabeth and Descartes' interactions with this discussion was extremely important in the modern movement in the early modern period, because with a lot of people trying to move away from the ancients, this was a reintroduction to like, let's talk about this more and let's delve into, are there ways to talk about this that are separate from ancient ideas? Yeah. And so it gave it a spot within this kind of new era of philosophy to kind of discuss, you know,
Yeah.
did they have it right, or
Right.
they didn't have it wrong, and what is science going to say about it?
Yeah.
And, you know, they're starting to ask this question. And you know what, people? We're still asking this question.
I know.
This is the thing with
It's
philosophy.
incredible. Yeah.
There's a lot of these questions that are perennial.
Mm-hmm.
Like there has not been a solution,
Right.
so-called,
Right. Right.
a scientific thing that expresses how does the soul, mind, body
Yeah. Yeah.
work together.
Yeah.
This is still the question.
Yeah.
They're asking it. We're asking it.
Yeah.
What do you want us to do to celebrate Elizabeth specifically and Descartes on the side? Oh, I did want to say one thing about their letters too, and you being able to read the correspondence now.
Yes.
For hundreds of
Yes.
years, Descartes' side of the conversation was the only thing that was published.
Yes.
And we love to talk about female philosophers, and you'll hear us talk about them more in this series and all the series to come. One of the things I want us to talk about in the Enlightenment period is, you heard us bring up Christina, who was being tutored by Descartes, you know, and you'll hear us talking more and more about these women during this kind of 15th century on
Yeah.
that come up. There were a bunch of famous female philosophers during this time period.
Yeah.
Not just now that we look back at them, but
Yeah.
during the time period.
In real time.
Highly respected.
Yes.
They were being published.
Yes.
Or they weren't being published. They were being discussed.
Yeah.
They were in the salons.
Yeah.
You know, they were a part of the discussion. But there were several things that happened that made their writings not end up in the kind of conversation for the last few hundred years that changed sort of around the 1990s. There's this kind of like push for all of these women to be translated and starting to like push their knowledge and their philosophies forward. And with Elisabeth, one of the things that happened is she specifically asked that her letters not be published. So so with Elisabeth, she specifically asked that her letters not be published because she was a princess. One.
Yeah.
Two, she had this supposedly, because that's not from her mouth, but
Right.
just from people who are assessing her stuff. So the thing with her being a princess, and there was also the thing where she respected Descartes to this level. She, I think, almost saw herself as like perpetuating his own ideas, and she didn't want to distract from his area of a philosopher by just being more kind of rich and famous than him.
Way smarter than him.
And way smarter and longer lived and like all of those things.
Yeah.
So there was that side of things, but there's also a side of things where kind of there's this movement in the Victorian period where the writing of philosophy changed a lot. And so a lot of these female philosophers in the Enlightenment period had written in this way that people moved away from. And that was something that I read as another reason why we didn't see a lot of this published.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
until later times.
And so many fascinating, arguments to find on this front, and sort of explanations for how and why women, it's not to say necessarily fell out of this kind of canon, but were excluded from this kind of canon of early modern philosophy. It's like there are a lot of, like as you're pointing to several reasons, like there are a lot of reasons. One of those too is that at some point in and around the French Revolution, there was like this concerted effort to say that philosophy and theology are two distinct areas of inquiry.
Right.
And what turned out to be the case was that a lot of these women philosophers were engaged in theological kinds of questions because these are also ethical questions, right? And so when it was decided that philosophy was not theology, or theology was not philosophy, and you start to quote unquote canonize a lot of these figures, by default, all of these women who are writing about God and various kinds of obligations in relation to this, and male philosophers too,
absolutely,
who were very influential in the time, they start to fall out of the narrative that's being constructed. And so we're often, when you ask people on the street, as we do, hey, do you think women were philosophers, in the 1500s? They're gonna be like, no way, they weren't allowed, right? Or they were barred from it. It was like, well, you're right. But in spite of all that, a lot of these women were self-educated, brilliant, writing things, in some cases publishing and self-publishing, in other cases people were publishing their work in real time, again, despite the fact that there was so much bias and prejudice. Took a lot of grit and perseverance, and still, then there had to be this sort of late 90s kind of concerted effort to rediscover a lot of what had been intentionally or unintentionally left out of the conversation.
For sure. Because the reason there's this whole thing with woke culture, or whatever. And I just want to say, just when you hear people try and minimize these additions to history.
Yes.
that they're not additions.
They're not additions, exactly.
They are things that are being edited back in.
Yes, exactly.
They were omitted previously.
Yes, exactly.
It's not an addition.
Yeah.
It's just we're making the whole picture clear.
Again.
Descartes wouldn't be who he is without Elisabeth.
Exactly. It's like a puzzle that you're like putting the pieces back that have been removed over time.
Exactly.
You're just, as you just said, it's like completing the picture.
It's just completing the picture.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to throw that in there in case for your happiness.
And speaking of which,
what are we going to do to celebrate Elisabeth? Yeah.
Elizabeth. That's actually how it was originally pronounced. History rewrote her.
Her friends called her Elisabeth.
Well, what I would invite you to do is, as you can imagine, given the way that we sort of started out our opening question, is I want you to do something that you think is going to be tending to the flourishing of your body, and reflect on whether you find any impact on the well-being or the flourishing of your mind. And so that can be anything, right? Taking care of your body, right? That can be something as trivial or not as taking a warm bath or a warm shower, going for a walk, making your favorite breakfast because it's tasty.
Breakfast.
I love
you
breakfast.
Just lit up when you said the word breakfast.
I love a pancake and egg situation. I really do.
I like this so much because there's so many ways. Like when you say tend to your body, like I'm not a person who especially like massages.
Right.
Like, I know I'm supposed to like them.
But you don't like them.
I feel like I am like in a performance the whole time.
Oh, you're like,
where I have to
this
be
is so
away
great.
for the person. And it's not true. It's something I've made up in my mind, but I can't.
Oh, and your mind is affecting your body? I'm just
But I do love, have you ever done a float, like a sensory deprivation chamber?
So good.
That's my favorite because nobody's there.
Nobody's there. You're in a dark room, floating in salted water.
Being unobserved is the biggest gift that I could possibly, and I think that I need to do that.
Well, then you should do that and tell me if it makes you feel mentally better. From What We Gathered is brought to you with gratitude by Tyler Olson, our sound producer, editor, performance wrangler, Danny Nelson, co-host and producer, and me, co-host Kylie Shahar. A special thanks to Sam Fisher for our music, and thank you to those from whom we've gathered, our teachers, scholars, historians, lovers of wisdom, the internet, and of course, thank you, our listeners.